Hi all, it's the 21st of October 2022, and Tropical Storm Roslyn has formed in the East Pacific. It is forecast to move up the coast and then turn around back towards Mexico as a hurricane. Let's take a look at it. The tropical storm is looking quite healthy in the early hours of the morning. It's nighttime in Mexico right now. We've got good consolidated convection around the core and a big band of thunderstorms moving in towards the core. The storm is classified as a strong tropical storm right now. The satellite-based estimates have the storm around 55 knots, which is what the National Hurricane Center have the storm at. That's 65 miles an hour, 1 minute sustained winds. Despite some indications that there might have been an eye forming, it doesn't look like a distinct eye has formed yet at this stage. If we extend that infrared satellite loop to 1 hourly increments, we can see the movement of the storm has been edging towards the west-northwest. To get an idea of the steering influences, I'm having a look at the winds at 500 hectopascals. That's at about 5,500 meters above sea level, indicated here on the right. And the big system you can see is this big trough out towards and then over California there and out towards the southwest of California. And then we've got this ridge here in the jet that comes down like this. The bit in between is over here. We've got this flow on the ridge which is pushing the storm, has been edging it towards the west. But over time, if we move this forward, the trough is moving in from the west, and that is forecast to edge that ridge further eastward, and with that trough deepening, it pulls the storm northward and then into Mexico. So it changes from going towards the west-northwest to the north and eventually towards the north-northeast as that trough picks it up. In addition, that trough may introduce some shear that could limit the intensity of the storm, but then it's pulled very rapidly up and turned into a big mess of a system up into the trough as it heads into Texas. And that is on the 24th of October, Monday. Let's take a look at the hurricane wharf. The 0Z run shown here, but the 06Z is almost in, but unfortunately it's not completed yet, so you'll have to check that. I don't have it in. But we can see on the 0Z run the storm becoming a hurricane at that point, which is 21 UTC today. That's 21st of October. So later today, it's forecast to intensify to become a hurricane in the hurricane wharf, and that fits with the National Hurricane Center prediction as well, with the storm likely to rapidly intensify during this period. The peak intensity seems to be around here, which is October 23rd, 15 UTC, where the storm is at 955 millibars in the hurricane wharf. Then you get that slight weakening as the storm approaches the Mexican coast. It passes over the Isla Maria down here as a more significant storm, and then in the hurricane wharf at least it does weaken to about category 1 intensity at the point of landfall before dissipating over the Mexican mountains. Due to, I think, the fact that the initial center is actually edged very slightly northeastward, the National Hurricane Center actually have the storm making landfall very slightly to the south of where that hurricane wharf forecast had it making landfall. It's also interestingly, well, similar intensity at this point, and then we don't have an intensity estimate exactly at landfall. So this is during that possible weakening phase. Nonetheless, 95 knots in the channel between the Isla Maria over here and this headland on Mexico is just 1 knot off major hurricane intensity. So a significant hurricane certainly possible, and whether it tips into major hurricane intensity will be an interesting thing to watch for. There is pretty good agreement amongst all of these models tracks. As you can see, they're all showing the curve gently curving around as it gets taken up by that trough and coming in most likely to this section of the Mexican coast at the landfall point. Depending on how far north it actually gets, the Isla Maria would be in the path of a direct landfall of probably a stronger storm than at the actual landfall point. But it does look like the consensus is actually edging the storm just to the south of the Isla Maria. So what's the take-home message here? Well, it's looking like an interesting, potentially rapidly intensifying storm within the next 24 hours, increasing to hurricane strength, possibly tipping into a major hurricane. Takes this curve around, and the impacts are likely to be west central coast of Mexico landfall at hurricane strength on late Saturday, October 22nd into Sunday, the 23rd of October. Strong winds, dangerous storm surge. Heavy rains of a system like this into those mountains typically produce flash flooding, landslides because of the complicated terrain into those tight valleys. And so the National Hurricane have issued a hurricane warning in effect for portions of this coast. We'll hopefully do an update as we see the storm intensify, and thanks a lot for watching. See you in the next one.